Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
We are excited to be joined by David Bearman. He is the Chief Content Officer at Pro Football Network. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, happy to be back. I enjoyed myself the last time, and it's been a while. And so when you reached out, I was like, good timing out of you because I'm doing more and more right now with the on-air space and the betting. So happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's always a great time of the year because I know you do a lot of futures bets, especially with football, of course. And I think last time we had you on, you were with ESPN. Now you've got this new role at Pro Football Network, and you're going to be launching a new newsletter, specifically Betting with Bearman. Tell us about the newsletter before we jump into some of these bets and some of these games. Tell us about what you're going to be launching here and what fans can expect, how to sign up, and what they're going to be getting with this newsletter from you.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the time to pitch it. Basically, you know my background, having worked at ESPN for 18 years, the last half of which was involved in the sports betting content, whether it be developing research content for sports betting before PASPA was overturned, and then when PASPA was overturned, launching a daily show and daily wager, overseeing ESPN Chalk, which is now ESPN Bet, and working to get ESPN Bet off the ground, and then coming over to PFN and do a little betting here and there. But as the chief content officer, I was in charge of basically all the content. And now I've been here 2 years, and my role is focusing now more on the premium content and launching premium stuff, such as newsletters. There'll be a lot more than that, but the newsletter started today on Monday. We're going to do it 3 times a week. There's going to be a couple of free editions as well as some paid editions. And I'm going to be upfront and honest. Like, obviously, we all want to win money. We all want to win bets. That's why we're talking about it. That's why we're going to talk advice and picks and et cetera. But the difference is, unlike a lot of these newsletters and a lot of these call-in numbers and a lot of these touts out there who are like, hey, I'm gonna make you this amount of money and I hit 60% of my bets, yada, yada, yada. I'm not even going there. Do I want to win? Of course I want to win. We all want winning bets. My goal is to just make everybody a smarter bettor, a sharper bettor. I've been around the business a long time, sat with the bookmakers and helped them book lines at one point, sat there and helped develop content for ESPN and then PFN. So been around the nuts and bolts of what goes on in the betting industry more than just looking at lines. I've created lines before. I've developed content for ESPN for those lines. So what I'm going to do is take you a little bit of peek behind the curtains. It's going to be a lot of advice, a lot of tips, a lot of betting 101. And of course, there's going to be picks. There's always picks. There's going to be nuggets. There's going to be leans. There's going to be this. My goal is to develop a betting community of stuff, people like yourself, people like Alex, who just want to, like, you're into betting, but you want to do it the right way. You don't just got to, hey, there's a game on TV, I got to bet it. No, you don't. Like, bet it if you have an edge. What's the edge? I'm here to tell you what the edges are. And, an example in today's newsletter, Oklahoma City Thunder are the prohibitive favorites to win the NBA title at minus 165. And I explain, listen, they're also minus 330 to win the series, be around the same price to win the next series. If you just bet them to win each series and rolled it over, you're going to get the price at 145, which is better than 165, a little bit of an edge. So that's just one example of plenty that'll be out there. I gave reasons why you would want to take the Pacers at 8-1, even though they're the longest odds on the board. So there's a lot of different ways you can play each game, whether it's player props, whether it's team props, sides, totals, etc. And the more you know, the better you'll be. So again, it's about making sure everybody is sharper and more educated and bring you closer to the people behind the scenes in the betting community. Now, where can you get it? PFNbetting.com is the place to go. PFNbetting.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Some will be free, some will be premium. You got to, make money in the business, of course. But it's not a tout service. It's not selling picks. It's basically saying, hey, we have someone who has done sports betting for a long time. Let's share the wealth, share the knowledge, and hopefully get everybody a little bit sharper than they were coming in.
And let's not forget, Brad, the most important thing about David, he is an alum of the University of Florida, the university that gave you all Gatorade.
Absolutely.
And we are the only team. I'm going to go on a rant for a moment. We are the only team that has 3-3, and we're going to get two more in baseball. So yeah, we're the only team that has 3 national championships in basketball and football. Thank you.
And it's funny you mentioned the baseball. Obviously, as a Florida alum, huge. It was there for Spurs' first title. Obviously, with Urban's 2 titles, the basketball team has given us a lot of love the last few years. But near and dear to my heart is the baseball team. When I was at Florida, I was a reporter for the local radio station and TV stations, and I was the baseball guy. Like, I came from I've ended up working in minor league baseball, working for the Marlins organization, but I got started covering the Florida Gator baseball team. So I know it's football and it's basketball, but that 17 title for baseball and the runs they've made the last few years, they're obviously the hottest team in the country right now. So, hey, it's Omaha time, so let's roll.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, before we jump in, once again, pfnbetting.com. And like I said, Pro Football Network, great place for just overall sports and football information. But make sure you sign up for that new newsletter because there's going to be some great information in there. Speaking of information, let's jump into some NFL bets here. Because, look, we had you on the show a couple years ago now. Been wanting to have you back. I'm glad to have you back. And you crushed some future bets and absolutely crushed some week one bets the last time you were on here. So, guys, so make sure you're paying attention here. Let's look at the opening game of the NFL because we know this is going to be a lot of eyeballs. There's going to be a lot of people excited to have football back. Everyone's going to be watching this game. The Eagles-Cowboys season opener, standalone game. So, of course, people are going to be betting it heavily. What do you expect this line to settle at? What are some key factors that bettors should be watching here? And so far, what are you looking at with this game?
I'm normally not someone that likes to lay a touchdown or more in any NFL game. I think there's too much value on taking the points. And if you look at, there's 3 NFL lines week one that are 7 or longer. And I've taken the dog in the other 2. But in the opener, I'm actually leaning towards the Eagles. And listen, there's a humongous difference in talent here. So I think the Eagles, and in the first game of the season, people have different philosophies. Oh, it's banner night, emotion. They're going to win. They're going to roll. Sometimes it's too much. They're thinking about the parade, and they're thinking about the rings and the banners, and they don't think about the game. Eagles much better than the Cowboys talent-wise. People like to jump on the Cowboys and, oh, they're Dallas or America's team. Listen, it's not a good football team. You know, are they going to win 6-7 games? Probably. But the Eagles are just that much better and will be more prepared for game one. I am going to lay it with 7 over the Cowboys. I just think the Eagles are that much better. I do think it's ironic that the Eagles are raising the banner versus the Cowboys who haven't raised one in about 30 years.
Let's just go to that next game that has 7 or more, and the Giants versus the Commanders.
In this one, I would take the Giants only because you're getting the hook. You're getting the 7.5. I think that extra. It's not a game I love. It's not a game that's the top of my board. But I told you right off the top, I like taking more than a touchdown in any NFL game. I do think the Commanders are significantly better than the Giants, but the Giants are getting the hook there. You asked Brad off the bat where I think that first line ends up. I never did answer that question. If you like the Eagles, take it now because I think that line ends up at 8.5 before it's all said.
I tend to agree with you, and that's what I was thinking too because I'm with you. I think this is just such a massive, massive mismatch of talent. I think the Cowboys, they're really going to take a big step back this year. And from just a roster standpoint, I just don't think they match up at all with this Eagles team. So I'm with you. I think they could really roll the Cowboys in this game. I'm actually a little surprised they went Eagles-Cowboys week one. Like I would have expected the Lions or somebody like that maybe had a little more juice. I know the Cowboys brand carries a lot, so maybe that was what they were thinking there. But I don't see this being a great matchup at all.
No, and I agree with that. I think a lot of speculation was you would get the Eagles versus one of the better NFC teams. But at the same time, Eagles-Cowboys is almost guaranteeing the whole world's going to watch because even if you're not an Eagles fan, you could be the Cowboys fan. And listen, it's 2 fan bases that are passionate about their teams. And also, if you look at the rest of America, everybody else hates these 2 teams. So the NFL is all about the big rating, and they're going to get it. But to your point, they would have gotten it regardless. You could have put in Philadelphia against Cleveland opening night, and they still would have gotten a good rating. That being said, obviously, you're shipping the Chiefs out to Brazil to face the Chargers. The NFL, and I said this the other day, I was on with Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio, and they asked me my thoughts on the schedule release in general, not the game, not the actual point spreads, but just in general. It shouldn't come as a surprise because the NFL is moving more and more in this direction, but their big push for standalone games with big teams and big markets and standalone. Obviously, primetime has always been big. Go back to when we were kids and Monday Night Football with the helmets was huge. And then Sunday Night Football became huge. But you didn't get the Thanksgiving games that were like literally 3 awesome games like you're going to get with, you know, the Chiefs are playing and all, you know, obviously you're going to get Lions and you're going to get Cowboys, but, you know, you're mixing in teams like the Chiefs and the night game is pretty awesome. And you see now the NFL's like, you know what, we're going to have the Chiefs play in Brazil. We're going to have the Chiefs play on Thanksgiving Day in Dallas. We're going to have the Chiefs go and play on Christmas. They're really, really leaning into the big name teams with the big name players like Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. And you look at the primetime games and the standalone games. You even got Dolphins and Commanders in Madrid. And, you can ignore the fact that the Jaguars host a bunch of games in London. The London games with the Jets, Jags, and Cleveland, obviously, they're still mad about the Boston Tea Party. But, you get the Chiefs and Chargers in Brazil and Dolphins and Commanders in Spain. You got a good one in Ireland. The Vikings are going to 2 different locations. The NFL is pushing the standalone thing. There's Saturday games. There's 3 on Christmas, and they're all really good matchups, which will lessen the Sunday games. But that goes back to your original thing of why Eagles, Cowboys on opening night. Well, it's 2 very, very, very big fan bases. But the days of us having 6, 7, 8 games on Sunday that blow your mind, that's not happening anymore.
You mentioned the overseas games. From a betting standpoint, how difficult is it on your end? Because I know you said you've set some lines sometimes, right? There's a big difference in that game. I think that's a home game for the Chargers, technically a home game for the Chargers. How big of a difference is that from a line standpoint when you're having to judge, okay, you're going to be traveling, you're not going to be as comfortable. Most people stay at home, most players stay at home or whatever, or you're in a familiar place that you played for the past 5 years, for the most part, being in the same division. Now you're literally in foreign land, foreign soil, and everything that you would normally do for a home game, you're completely thrown off. And then the same for the away team.
I think you throw the home field out the window. It's not home field for anybody. But as far as like setting the lines and looking at it, I think each one is separate and different upon itself. You look at Brazil. Last year when the game was in Brazil, the field was a disaster. I'm not sure they've changed anything, so expect the field to be a disaster, which affects the props and it affects the running game and affects the wide receivers. So there's ways to look at it. It was a very high-scoring game with the defense not being able to get their footing. So Chargers, Chiefs you think would be a lower-scoring game. I would actually jump it up a little bit because of the field conditions there. The Jags playing in London isn't so much a home field advantage as is that the Jags franchise is used to playing in there. They're used to the travel, etc. This year, there's a little bit of a different change where Minnesota's going to get to play back-to-back games over in Europe, albeit Dublin and then London. So that's a different factor. Maybe their second game, they're a little bit better rested because they haven't traveled like they did the week before. I think a lot of it also comes down to how each team factors in when they're going to travel out there. Everyone's different. Some guys go Thursday, some teams go Friday. Some teams like to go out there and adjust to the time frame difference. But at the same time, you've had teams travel before. It's just a little bit extra because you're going into a foreign territory. Listen, the Chiefs played the Dolphins a couple of years ago in the first game in Germany. And at that time, they were the 2 most prolific offenses in the NFL. The final score was like 14-7. And the one touchdown was a defensive touchdown that, stripped the ball from Tyreek Hill and went the other way. It was 17-7. So you don't know what you don't know is a thing. Like if you took Dolphins and Patriots and Dolphins and Bills and put them in Buffalo, the Bills are going to score, and the Bills are probably going to dominate the game because that's what happened the last 8 years. Dolphins and Patriots in Foxborough has been a low-scoring game for as long as I can remember. You don't have that same knowledge when it comes to these other locations, and, we've never had a game in Dublin. You haven't had a game in Spain. We have no idea how it's going to work out.
With it being those neutral sites and not having any home field advantage with these international games, is the under the play there? Is there value there more often than not?
There is, and if you go back and look at the historical scores of the overseas games, especially in London and a few times in Germany, it has been the unders. Whether it's lack of home field advantage or it's the travel and the weary or playing a game at local 9:30 in the morning, even though it's not 9:30 out there. When the West Coast team plays out there at 6:30 in the morning West Coast time. All being said, you've also have to take in the fact that the Jags have played half these games as well, and they're not exactly the Chiefs. But a lot of the games have gone under, but the books have adjusted as well. It's not just a blind under. Like the last time we had games in London, the totals were in the low 40s, high 30s. So the books know that and they adjust accordingly.
So let's jump into some week 1 games. What are some games you're looking at? Some of your best bets, some of your favorite lines here, and then some stay away games that you don't like the line on.
Yeah, I did a Twitter thread the night the schedule release, and then eventually that would have been newsletter fodder, but the newsletter wasn't launched yet. But the type of stuff that would be in there, I gave out 3 plays on Twitter, and they'll be in an upcoming edition of the newsletter. There were 3 games I really, really liked. To jump on now, again, we're also talking May when the season doesn't start until September. So take it for what it's worth. If you don't bet the games, you might be smarter than us because you're not betting them until September. But at the same time, if you want the right number and you want the good edge, you could jump on them now. They're posted for a reason. So I'll start off with the Monday night game. The Monday night game is the Bears-Vikings. Bears -1.5. Listen, I think the Vikings are going to take a little bit of a step back. You have a change of quarterback, and for all intents and purposes, you have J.J. McCarthy as basically a rookie quarterback is what he is, since he didn't play last year, whether it's his rookie season or not. And I think I might like the Bears a little bit too much right now because it is the offseason, and it'll probably slap me in the head come season when they don't win 9 or 10 games. But the Bears have the talent to be a really, really good team. And now they're getting the coach from Detroit and Ben Johnson, who's going to get a ready-made quarterback in Caleb Williams. And listen, he didn't have the greatest rookie season, but he showed flashes.
Yep.
And I think with the right, the thing that was holding Chicago back last year, and we saw it Thanksgiving Day, and we saw it a couple other times, their coach. Eberflus was not a good coach. He blew games left and right. That team was better than they showed, and eventually they quit on their coach, and then they had an interim coach who wasn't that good. Now they got a guy who legitimately picked where he wanted to go. He decided not to go coach the year before, and he picked his spot. There were 6-7 openings. He could have chosen anywhere he wanted, and he chose Chicago. And why? Because they have all the weapons in the world. They have the wide receivers and DJ Moore and Odunze, and then, of course, they go and get the Missouri wide receiver and Luther Burden III. They got Caleb Williams. DeAndre Swift is serviceable. And what I really like is they went and got Colston Loveland, who to me was the highest-rated tight end. I know Tyler Warren's great, but what does Caleb Williams needs? He needs a tight end to dump off to because he runs around too much. He needs that tight end to dump off to, and I think he has that in Loveland. And you add Ben Johnson to the mix, and I think you're really looking at a team that can surprise a little bit this year. It being only 1.5, so laying only 1.5 at home to the Vikings, I think is a game that I like.
Yeah, I'm with you for all the same reasons. Just a lot of upgrades to this team. Like you mentioned, the roster, the offensive line, the weapons, and of course the coach, which I think, to your point, was the biggest issue by far last year. So it's hard not to look at the Bears and think that they're not considerably upgraded. And also to your point, I think the Vikings could take a big step back this year. So it seems like there's a lot of value there at just -1.5.
I thought that line would be a little bit different. I thought the fact that the Bears have, believe it or not, the better quarterback at this time, they having a new head coach coming in there, I thought the line would be a little bit higher, especially being at home. The other two that I'm taking week 1 are actually underdogs, and it's not so much because of them, but it's because of their opponent. Evidently, the books are pretending, and it's not just the week 1 spread, but if you look at the favored to win the NFC West, everybody's jumping all over the San Francisco 49ers as if last season never happened. Now, are they going to be as bad as they were last season when they had injuries across the board? No. But are they going to be as good as they were the year before when they won the NFC and went to the Super Bowl? No. I think they're somewhere in between, but I don't see them laying points on the road in Seattle week 1 as a wise bet. So I'm actually taking Seattle here, who I know had a weird offseason, pretty much trading away their wide receivers and their quarterback, but they also got some weapons in. So they got Darnold, who may not be able to put up what he did in Minnesota, but he's serviceable and arguably better than Geno. And you got Cooper Kupp. I think that this is a transition year where, no, I don't expect Seattle to make the playoffs or win 10 games, but I do think getting them week 1 plus the points at home versus a Niners team who you don't really know what you're going to get. Is Christian McCaffrey healthy? Wide receivers went out the board. They had as quiet as an offseason as anybody's had until they just gave Brock Purdy $250,000 for reasons unknown. I just don't think they're the team that you lay points with on the road week 1. And the other one, I hope you guys brought your nose pins and just want to hold it real quick because you're going to need to for this one. And again, this is not because I love the Cleveland Browns. I don't like the Cleveland Browns. There's a reason why they're 250-1 to win the Super Bowl at the bottom of the list with the New Orleans Saints. But until Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, realizes that the season actually starts in September and not October, I'm going to take the Browns plus the 4.5 at home week 1. Again, it's not a game that I'm going to enjoy watching. It's one I'm going to be asking myself, why did I do this? But at the same time, before you scream, David, it's the Browns. Why would you do that? What did the Bengals do week 1 last year? They lost at home to the New England Patriots. When everybody, you Alex, you Brad, me, and everybody listening, had the free square Bengals in the survivor pool. We all had them. We know we all did. People are going to do it again this year, and I'm telling you, don't do it. Zach Taylor and the Bengals are 1-5 straight up in September the last 2 years. You don't lay points with them on the road in Cleveland. And by the way, the year before, season opener, the Bengals lost to Cleveland. Yeah. So they have shown, losing to the Patriots and the Browns the last 2 years, that for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a lack of preseason, lack of training camp, whatever reason it is, until Zach Taylor figures out September, I'm going to continue to ride the train of taking the points against them. You'd make a fortune if you did it every single September. So that's my third best bet. Again, me telling you in May that I want the Browns plus 4.5. It's not something I wake up screaming, but I think it's a good play.
And the funny thing is, I think the year before that, that's when they lost to the Steelers. I believe they lost to the Steelers too.
Yep.
So there is
a trend. And listen, maybe he figures it out and they have a great training camp and they go undefeated in the preseason and they start 4-0 in September like they should. Maybe that happens. Congratulations. The trend's over. You move on. You ride the trend as long as you can. You know it's going to end. But if I've been taking this trend every single year, I'm not going to stop until it ends. So to me, this is just a trend to play on, and why not keep going?
Well, and not only that, but it's a division matchup, which tend to be closer games in general, and you're getting, like you said, 4.5 points for a home team. I love a home dog, and you're getting over that field goal mark. To me, I see it. There's a lot of value there, and like you pointed out, Cincinnati's a team that's had a lot of slow starts. We know their defense is god-awful, so I don't hate that pick at all. And the Seattle pick that you mentioned, I like that pick as well because that's a really tough place to play. It's a really tough road environment for a team that has a lot of moving parts and could start slow as well because you're integrating so many new pieces. Even if the Niners end up having a bounce back season, it could be a team that maybe starts 2-3, before they kind of get it going. It wouldn't shock me at all. Speaking of teams here and looking ahead, so some season win totals. What are some teams that you're looking at that you really like? Some overs, some unders, and then of course, last time we had you on, you had a couple that you felt were just home runs and you hit them out of the park. So kind of go over some of these season win totals now with the schedule release that you really like here.
There were a couple that jumped out at me that I'm going to look deeper into as the season goes along. And you mentioned the newsletter at the beginning. I'm going to have some of these in there. We're going to hit NFL win totals. We're going to hit awards. We're going to hit divisions and futures. A couple that jumped out at me, I'd mentioned the NFC West a minute ago. Like, I actually like the Rams to win the division. They're not the favorite to win the division, and their number's 9.5. This is a Rams team that knows how to win. It's a coach that knows how to win. He's been there and done that. I think this is a team that can win 10, 11 games and make the playoffs once again. And their number's at 9.5. Yes, they're playing in a tough NFC West division, but I think that number is a little low where people underestimate the Rams time and time again. This will be the third straight year I'll be on the Rams over. I think the one that you're talking about was 2 years ago where the Rams were about 7.5 or 6.5. And I said, listen, I think this team's not only going to go over the total, but I think they're live to win the division. They wound up winning 9-10 games and almost won the division. So we actually got to a point where I was able to bet the Niners against the Rams and basically hedge that bet. I mentioned the Bears earlier. Again, go with caution. It is the Chicago Bears, but I think the difference maker is the coach and the tight end they drafted. This is a team in the toughest division of football. No doubt about it. The Lions are good. The Packers are good. Vikings are good. All three made the playoffs last year. The Bears were the ugly stepchild. I actually think the Bears move up a bit. The Vikings move down a bit. You know what you're getting in Green Bay. The Lions are still going to be the hoss there. They might take a slight step back, but they're still an 11-12 win team. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities to get over 8.5 with Chicago. You're talking about a winning season. You're talking about 9-8. This is a team that is going to get better with their coach just by the nature of it. And if I had to pick one team to go from the bottom of the barrel to a playoff run, it would be the Chicago Bears. I talked about it earlier. I'm probably talking about it too much on too many channels. But I do think 9 wins is one thing that they can do this year. Even if they don't make the playoffs, 9 wins would be a good season. Another couple that I'm looking at, all due respect to Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've had a run of 9 wins nonstop his entire career. At some point, that's going to end. And listen, I'm not going to bet it just because I think the trend's going to end. I just told you a minute ago, I bet trends until they die. On this one, this is not a very good football team. And listen, unless you are taping this podcast and playing it back 3 months from now, they still don't have a quarterback. So with all due respect to Mason Rudolph, if Mason Rudolph is their quarterback in September, I'm really liking the under 8.5. If Aaron Rodgers comes in, whatever. It's the last time I'm going to mention his name on the show. Could they win 9 games? He didn't do it in the New York either time he was there, and they didn't win 9 games the last year he was in Green Bay. So that doesn't really scare me. I think they're easily the third best team in that division, maybe just ahead of the Browns. They're way behind the Bengals and the Ravens. I don't see them getting to 9 wins. So I would even take it a step further and maybe do an alt under 9.5, pay the juice. Maybe it's 130, maybe it's 140, because they're not going to win 10 games. If you really think Tomlin's going to win 9, because he always does, then take the alt line, which is available at DraftKings. They have every single number in the world, and pay the juice to go, because this team's not winning 10 games. I know they did last year, but they also got out to a 5-1 start and had arguably the worst 5-1 start in the history of the National Football League, and we have numbers to back that up. They were outscored by their opponents during a 5-1 start, which is unheard of. They were winning, and then you saw the wheels fall off as the season went on. I don't see them as being a 9-win team, so I'm going to be playing the under on that one. Quickly, 2 other ones that I was looking at. I mentioned the Lions. The numbers dropped to 10.5. Maybe it's because the schedule's tough, etc. It's all they do is win 11-12, and forget about what they do in the playoffs. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about win totals. I'm not talking about taking the Lions to win the Super Bowl, which they very well may have could. They're a team that won 14 games last year. Do I think they win 14 again? No. But I had them over 11.5 last year, and it wasn't close. And now the number's 10.5. Yes, the Bears are going to get better. The Vikings are still good. It is a tough division, but are you going to be surprised when the Lions go 11-6 or 12-5? No one's going to be surprised. So I like over 10.5 there. And the last one, we just talked about the Bengals. This is a big if, big asterisk, but the little nugget next to it. If they remember September is when the season starts, which could hurt my week 1 bet, but should they do it, this is an 11-win football team. They can win 11 games. They have the talent to do so. I mean, they won 9 last year, and they started 0-4. So the only other one that caught my eye this early is, and this is me knowing that the Dolphins are not going to win the division, the Patriots are not going to win the division, the Jets are not going to win the division. The team that travels the least amount of miles in the entire NFL is the Buffalo Bills. And 12.5 is a big number, no doubt. 12.5 is a big number. Can they get to 13 wins? I think they can. I mean, they've done it before, and they're the best team in the division. They're one of the best teams in the conference. So it's not anywhere near the top of my list. It was just I looked at that number and I said, well, no one else is going to win that division, so, they can go 13-4. But, again, it's not one of my top plays. I would take the Bears over 8.5, Rams over 9.5, and Steelers under 8.5 before I took any of the others.
So here's the thing that jumped out at me. The Indianapolis Colts. Not only did their week 1 line against
Dolphins.
Dolphins, thank you, who they're playing with that, I think it's only 1 point or 1.5. That surprised me, but the Colts at 7.5 wins. So we now believe in Daniel Jones and or Anthony Richardson that this team can win 7.5 games?
I think that's a complete playoff last year's final record that they wound up going 8-9, and maybe they're better with Tyler Warren, maybe they're not. I mean, I think the Colts are exactly who they are. They're an 8-win team, 7-win team, and the number's right there at 7.5. The week 1 line, actually, it was a game that when I did my thread, I took the Dolphins simply because, first of all, I went to that game last year. It was one of the worst NFL games I've ever seen. I've seen about 300 of them. The Dolphins blew the lead and lost in a barn burner 16-10, and they had you and me playing quarterback. I mean, it was Tyler Huntley, and it was Tim Boyle, and it was probably somebody else I'd never heard of playing. There was no Tua. Anthony Richardson was there, played as well as Tim Boyle.
In spirit.
I mean, he played. And the Dolphins blew a late lead and lost 16-10. Now you're getting Tua. Assuming Tua is healthy, which he is now. It's week 1. If you're playing him week 4, that's different. There's no reason why the Dolphins showed last year that Dolphins and Colts tied at 8-9 because they were in that race with the Bengals. They were both 8-8 going into last week of the season. Last week didn't matter once they got eliminated. But they were pretty even. And Tua missed 5 weeks, including the Colts games. When Tua was there, and we know this for the Dolphins in general, the Dolphins are the better team. Now, if Daniel Jones is there and Daniel Jones becomes the quarterback, can that team win more than 7.5? Any of us convinced that Daniel Jones is the savior? Everyone's like, well, he could be the next Sam Darnold, next Baker Mayfield. Well, yeah, so could my son. It won't be week 1. Daniel Jones probably won't be the quarterback week 1.
Really? Oh, wow.
I mean, you might as well trade Anthony Richardson if you're going to start on week 1. Like, wait for him to fail before you bench him, right? Like, Daniel Jones was signed to give some competition and to be there in case. But if they weren't going to start, I mean, you never know how camp goes. You could have a terrible camp. But assuming that they're still rolling with their third-year player, again, I saw Anthony Richardson in person versus whoever the Dolphins threw out there. He's exactly what I predicted he was going to be. And it's sorry to say because I'm a Florida Gator alum and I had hoped he had done better, but I called it when I did shows before the NFL draft. I had no idea, anybody who watched Anthony Richardson play in college, why he was a top 5 pick. I didn't get it. Neither did my brother, neither did my other alums. And I'm like,
and neither did me, who's a fan. It was like after week 7 of Florida, watching him in Florida, they stopped explaining the playbook because he could not consume any more of it, and we were the same for the last few weeks of that day. But I digress.
I mean, I use the example, and I know we're not talking 2023 NFL draft, but I use the example. I said this before the draft. I watched them play against Tennessee, and it was 4th and ball game, and like they had to convert on 4th down to keep the game alive, and he rolled out, clock hit 0, and he ran, and he threw the ball into the 4th row. And I'm thinking, it's just not the throwaway play. It's 4th and ball game. Lack of awareness, and like, it's like the guy who takes the sack. No, like you got to make. I'm not saying it was going to be complete, and I'm not saying it's going to be a touchdown.
You got to try to make a play.
You can't throw it into the. And it was an obvious. Like I'm chucking it away. Right, well, the game just ended. So what are we doing?
Yeah. There's one reason why Anthony Richardson got drafted that high is because teams fall in love with traits. I see this tremendous athlete thinking if we can just develop this guy, and look, sometimes it works out, but obviously this is a big make or break season for him. And I do think that Colts over-under is fascinating because he's going to play a big part of it. Let's jump to some future awards here because you mentioned it a minute ago that's going to be something you're going to be doing on the newsletter. Maybe give us kind of a sneak peek here. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, MVP, DPOY. Who's some guys that you think, obviously we're talking way early here, off-season stuff, but maybe there's some value here, some guys that you're kind of circling.
Yeah, and it is way early, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't done the deep dive yet because we haven't put it in the newsletter yet. It will be in there. But the initial stuff that I have looked at, if you want to start with Offensive Rookie of the Year, obviously people are going to like Genty because he's going to go out there and he's going to run for 1,000 yards. Everyone's going to hand him the hardware right off the bat. Well, he's plus 250. There's zero value in taking the plus 250 in May. Now, you're going to take a plus 250 when you find out that he's the unequivocal starter in August? Maybe. But for right now, I'm staying away from that. Is Cameron Ward going to be the starter in Tennessee? Probably. Again, plus 350, no value there. I'm going to go deeper. And I know everyone loves Travis Hunter because he plays 2 ways. I'm not there yet until I see him play 2 ways. I'm going to go because I think he's a perfect fit for the Jim Harbaugh offense. I'm going to go Omarion Hampton, 10-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Again, he's got to be the starter for the most part to get it done, and we don't know it yet. But I would rather gamble on him getting the job done at 10-1 in the perfect offense for him in Los Angeles. Bet plus 250 for Genty to get the job done for Vegas. It's a situation where I just think there's better value on the 10-1 than the 2.5-1. Neither one has been named the starter. We won't even know it till August. But I think Hampton is just the perfect fit for that Harbaugh offense, and I like him there. In terms of Defensive Player of the Year, listen, they do it every single year. It shouldn't surprise anybody, but the Eagles just find the gems in the draft, and they wind up, you're like shaking your head like, of course I knew that was going to happen. Yeah, there were character issues, etc., but Jihad Campbell falling all the way to the bottom of the first round to the Eagles, going at 12-1. I really like him. He's going to be a perfect fit for that defense. He's going to go right in there for the defending Super Bowl champions, get a lot of time, get a lot of attention, and he could be an easy contender for Rookie of the Year. I'm going to throw a minor homer pick out there, not because he's with the Miami Dolphins, but because I think he's in a perfect situation because other than Mason Graham at defensive tackle in Miami, it's you and me suiting up at defensive tackle. So he's just in a situation where he's going to be the man immediately there on the defensive line. And I think should he do what Zach Sealer can do, they're going to be an outstanding 1-2 punch and he'll get some votes out.
What player was that you mentioned?
Mason Graham, Miami Dolphins.
Oh, you mean Cleveland Browns?
Yeah. Because that's why I was confused. Okay.
No. I was actually thinking
Kenneth Grant.
I'm sorry. I was meaning
Gotcha.
Kenneth Grant. I don't
his
want to say
teammate.
I was looking at his teammate. Exactly. I was looking at the wrong odds. I think Kenneth Grant is in a perfect position to get it done just because of where he is on the Dolphins depth chart and how they have nobody else at that position.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. A guy that's going to get a lot of snaps and could potentially put up good numbers just because of, like you said, there's just not a whole lot of guys around him that are going to be making plays, certainly. And I like your pick with Campbell as well, because a lot of times when we look at Defensive Rookie of the Years, it's a lot of stat-driven awards. And when you're a linebacker with a lot of tackles, a few sacks, maybe a pick, all of a sudden at the end of the year, you look up and say, wow, this guy's putting up really good numbers. Eagles are going to have another really good defense, so you know he's going to get some attention. I like that pick as well. And Omarion Hampton is absolutely my pick for Rookie of the Year. I'm with you. I actually have a higher grade on him than I do Ashton Genty. I know I'm out on a limb with that one a little bit, but
there's a lot more value there.
Yeah, I think he's a better player than Genty personally. He's bigger, stronger, faster, and he did it against way better competition. So I think the value with him is outstanding for a team that really wants to run the ball early and often too.
And when you look at the obviously saying the wrong Michigan guy, but Kenneth Grant is at 50-1, which is why I liked him. You have one play at 12-1 in Campbell. You have Kenneth Grant at 50-1. There's just more value there for a guy you know is going to get the snaps.
So I was looking at the Offensive Player of the Year odds, and I think Saquon Barkley at plus 500 as the betting favorite. I don't like that at all, because if we're just talking about trends, Saquon Barkley has never been healthy 2 years in a row in his career. And I don't want the player to get hurt, right? I'm not saying that the player gets hurt, but that's just been the trend. He doesn't have repeat years. He's up 1 year, then down 1 year, then up 1 year, then down a year. The previous year with the Giants, but before he was 312, 10 touchdowns. The next year he was 962 and 6. Then last year he was 2,005 and 13, just rushing numbers. I see this would be, if we're just following the trend here, right, then this would tend to be a down year. And I think that Offensive Player of the Year would be wide open to take anybody except Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, it is wide open. He obviously is the favorite, and he's also the guy that is going to get the rock the entire game, where the other guys, Bijan will get the rock, but he splits time. He'll get it for the most part, not necessarily in on all passing downs. Derrick Henry, what treads left on those tires, and then everybody else that's up for the award are all wide receivers. And it's like flip a coin. Is it Jamar Chase's year? Is it Justin Jefferson's year? Is it Puka Nakua's year?
Jameer.
Yep. And then, the one that I would look at, and he should have gotten more votes last year, but the offense was so good. They had so many weapons. Like, if you're going to go ahead and take a Jamar Chase at 9.5-1, or you're going to take Justin Jefferson at 18-1, why would you not just take Amon St. Brown at 28-1? The guy catches 120 passes a year and is the main weapon on the number one offense in football. Like, at 28-1, I think you're getting tremendous value there.
That's an absolutely great point, because really that's what it's about when we're looking at these lines. It's where's the value, right? Where are you getting the best value? And like you said, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, they might be more like high-profile names, but there's no reason that St. Brown can't put up a monster year on a team that's going to win a lot of games and get a lot of attention. So before we jumped on here, you had mentioned that college football betting lines, you're still working on those. So guys, once again, check out this newsletter, because he's going to have those coming here down the road. So we'll kind of skip past those, but you mentioned Florida here. Tell us about your Gators here, because you're looking at their season win total and have some thoughts on them.
Yeah, and listen, obviously, I'm wearing a shirt, where I went to school, but this is not a homer play. This is just purely based on the math. This is a team that wasn't that good last year, had a lot of issues with their quarterback and their coach, and the coach was getting, everyone wanted to fire him fired, and they go ahead and beat LSU and Ole Miss, and at the end of the day, they ended up with 8 wins, facing arguably the toughest schedule that we've had in recent time of any team, where they had all those ranked games in a row, whether it was Ole Miss or LSU or Texas and Georgia, and it was nonstop Miami, and they opened with Miami when they didn't really have what they had at quarterback, so you didn't know. Now, obviously, DJ Lagway takes over, and Napier gets an extra year, and they're actually a preseason top 20 team, which they weren't last year. You get Miami later in the schedule, albeit in Miami, and you're looking at that and you're thinking, all right, if they won 8 games last year with not the greatest play at quarterback, Lagway was not the starter, all due respect to Grant, Mertz, but wasn't really like blowing anybody away. And with the hard schedule that they had, you would think, all right, next year, better team, coach gets another year, schedule's not, it's hard, it's the SEC, not as difficult. You're thinking they could get 8 wins again, right? Well, the number's 6.5. So I know this is a team that last year, when they got off to the bad start, we all said you can't find 4 wins on the schedule and the coach is going to be gone and it's all over. And they scratched out 8 wins against a very tough schedule. And by the way, they played Georgia to the buzzer, beat LSU, beat Ole Miss. You got a team this year that should be better. LIU, South Florida, Miami, and Florida State are your non-conference games. You figure they win 3, not necessarily giving them the win in Miami, but it's possible they win all 4. They're going to beat Florida State at home, LIU and South Florida at home, so let's just give them 3. Yes, Texas is going to be a tough matchup, but it's in the swamp. Georgia's always a tough matchup. You get Kentucky, who's not the cream of the crop anymore. A&M will be good, and it's on the road. but not the A of previous years. You got Mississippi State at home. You got Ole Miss and Oxford, and you get Tennessee at home late in the year when they normally play them early in the season. You're telling me you can't win 3 of those games?
Oh, it definitely beat Tennessee. Doesn't win in the Swamp. We know that
right.
For sure.
So let's say you split with Tennessee and Miami. You count the other 3. You beat Mississippi State. You got to scratch out 1 between LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia and Kentucky. Like, to me, I think they can win 7 games. And again, 7 games isn't going to get him fired. Like, he's not going to be back for another year. Like, they're not going to put up with another 7-5 season. So if they're not going to beat the 6.5, he's not going to be there anyway. So I think they like him. Like, just the team rallied again around him last year. I'm not picking them to win the SEC. I'm not picking them to go to the college football playoff. I'm asking them to win 7 games. And I think they can win 7 games. And the schedule's not easy. This isn't the ACC. Sorry to everybody listening that's from the ACC.
But it's not.
But it's not. And if you're looking at a schedule that has LIU, South Florida, Tennessee, Florida State, Miami, Kentucky, there's 7 wins there. There are. It might only be 7 wins, but this team won 8 last year.
There's a lot of winnable games, and then you've got a few coin toss games. If you get a couple of those to go your way. And I think the biggest thing, and you mentioned the quarterback, Lagway came in. This guy's a 5-star quarterback out of high school. He's a big time recruit. The talent upgrade alone at the quarterback position. Now, my last question here before we let you go here, when you're talking about the newsletter and making people smarter with betting and just being a sharper bettor, what is a mistake or a common mistake that the amateur bettor makes, maybe a couple of them, just something that jumps out to you? They're like, look, amateurs tend to do this way too much, and if they just would stop doing this and maybe look at this, it could really change how they bet on the weekends.
I'll give you 2 things. One is waiting too long to make your bets. Everyone's like, I don't got to worry about until Sunday. And I'm telling you, the NFL lines are such that there's no surprises. Everybody knows who's playing. Everybody knows who's not. Everybody has the injury reports. Everybody knows the matchups. Everybody knows all the players. This isn't college where you could sneak one in the Mountain West or the Sun Belt where you may know more than the books. Like, everybody knows everything about the NFL. And if you're betting on Sunday morning, you're already buying the curveball. It's been bet into. The sharps have bet it. The pros have bet it. The Joes have bet it. And you've waited too long. I'm not saying you got to jump on it on Monday, because Monday you might not have all the information that you need. A lot of players are questionable. They haven't even gone and seen the trainer yet after getting banged up on Sunday. Sometimes you don't even know the injury until Monday happens or Tuesday. You've seen it in fantasy football. But you should bet by Wednesday. You have all the information you need by Wednesday. If the players aren't playing Wednesday, you usually know they're out. If they don't play and it's just a rest day, you think they're going to play. But no one's going to significantly impact the line to that degree unless it's a star quarterback that you should know everything. You should be betting by Wednesday, Thursday the latest. If you're waiting till Sunday for the NFL and Saturday for college, you're betting into a line that's already bet into so much that you're losing the edges. Now, there might be lines that don't move at all. It doesn't matter whether you've bet it on Wednesday or Sunday. But for the most part, you get a much better line on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday than you will on Sunday. The second thing that I would say that amateurs make a lot of mistakes on is needing to bet every single game. You don't need to bet every single game. My advice, and you'll see it in the column Betting with Bearman on pfnbetting.com, bet what you like. Bet where the edges are. You want to sit out a Thursday night game because you don't like it? Sit out a Thursday night game. It's on TV. I got fantasy players. I have to bet it. No, you don't. You don't. Maybe that's not a game you want to bet. There's no edge there. If you don't know, don't bet, because that is also a winning bet, is not a losing bet. Does that make sense? Like, if you pass, you don't lose. I'm not saying you're going to win, but it is winning by not losing. And in the long run, picking your spots. I like to bet my 4 to 5. You'll see it this year in the newsletter and on Twitter X and everywhere else our betting content is. I usually pick 4 NFL games, sometimes 5. And here are my 4 or 5 top plays. It doesn't have to be a side. Again, you don't have to bet every side. Yeah, there are pools where you got to pick all 16 games. I get it. You throw your $100 at the beginning of the year and hope you get the most. But for actual sports betting, week to week, pick your 4 or 5. Maybe it's 2 favorite games. There are 50-something games every single Saturday in college football. I'm not betting all 50. I'm betting my 4 or 5 favorite ones. The only time where I look at the schedule, and this will be another tip that's in there, is if I'm doing a parlay, a 4-team parlay, I like to have the 4th leg late so I can lay it off if I have to. If you win the first 3, you can lay it off, hedge it, etc. But that's a whole nother conversation. I would just say don't let the schedule and the number of games dictate what you want to bet. Bet what you like to bet, because ultimately you're going to win more betting the games you like than betting the games you don't like.
Absolutely great advice. Once again, guys, we've been joined by David Bearman, the Chief Content Officer for Pro Football Network. And once again, be sure to check out his newsletter. Get signed up now, guys. Just launched Betting with Bearman. It's going to be at pfnbetting.com, so you can hear all these types of sharp insights, how to win more bets, and how to be a smarter bettor. David, this has been awesome, man. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. Anytime. You can also get it. It's my pinned tweet at David Bearman PFN, at David Bearman PFN. The pinned tweet will take you right to the newsletter. Every Monday it'll be free, and then the other days, depending on when it is, some will be premium and some will not be.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.